characters, and they're all talking to themselves.
It is a little odd. The time it really got out of control was on Record of Lotus War. Yeah, back in the day, there's the OVA, which I didn't work on because I wasn't in the industry yet, but then when the TV series, The Chronicles of the Heroic Knight, came, I got cast as the young hero Spark. And then I got cast as this little elf, grass runner Mar, which is funny, and you've got two stories now. I'm going to get two for one. So we'll start with the first one. So I played Spark and I played Mar, but then what happened was we kept losing actors for some reason. And so I would start taking over their roles. And so I played Gabara, and then I played Groder, and then I played Garrett, who was the Blue Comet, who was part of like the crew with Spark. So there's Spark and the Blue Comet and Mar, and they're all in one scene together, and they're all back to back fighting these mud monsters. And it was ridiculous, because it was like, well guys, what are we, Spark's like, what are we gonna do, guys? And Mar's like, I don't know, what are we gonna do? And then, Garrett would come in, well Captain, what should we do now? So it's like, and I'm like sweating bullets. I'm like, really, do I have to play all three at the same time? So the other thing, and it's because it's an Otakon story, the second story is, when I was at Otakon 10 years ago, the guest they had, one of the guests was Yoko Kanno, who who's a composer who did Cowboy Bebop and then Vestaflone. And it was a little earlier in my career. I hadn't worked on any shows that she'd worked on, but we met, and she was so cute. And she's like, she spoke some English, and she said, what characters do you play? And I started naming off the shows, and she didn't know any of them until I got to Record of Lotus War, Chronicles of the Heroic Knight, because she did the opening theme song. And I said, Lodos, and she goes, oh, Lodos, who did you play in Lodos? And I said, Spark, and she went, oh, Spark, yes. And I said, and I also played Mar, and she goes, Ma? But he's a funny voice. And I said, yeah. And she's like, do more. Do more. I was like, hi, Reckon Mar. She's like, oh! You're so handsome. It's such a funny voice. Thank you, Yoko Kanno. You made my century. Thank you. You bet.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a big fan of Helsing, Noeen, Scrap Princess, and I My Me Strawberry Eggs.
That's quite a collection.
And I was just wondering, considering some of the touchy subjects that were covered in I My Me Strawberry Eggs, what was it like working on that?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting show. Because I My Me, it has a really good heart. It's all about a guy who's a teacher, and he's a gym teacher, and he wants to teach at this school, but the principal of the school doesn't believe that men are capable of love, so she doesn't have any male teachers. The school itself is co-ed, but only the teachers are all women. So he really needs a job, and he's really offended, frankly. He thinks men are perfectly capable of love. So he cross-dresses as a woman to get the job and work there. And the problem is that one of the young girls starts crushing on him. And so it becomes initially it becomes humorous, but then it starts to get more serious, which actually I give the show credit for, because they don't just sort of laugh it off, because, this kind of thing can happen, especially in Japan, where the teachers tend to be much younger, so the age difference isn't as great as it is, say, here in the US. But I did have to be very careful when I was adapting the show, because as it went on, I said, look, this kind of thing does happen, but we're not going to glorify it. We're not going to say that this is a good thing, or that this is to be aspired to. We're going to deal with it sort of honestly, and that this kind of thing has consequences. And so I think that was the cool thing about the show, is that we made sure that we didn't glorify it. And the show's like, yeah, it's not tenable. This is not sort of cool. So, but yeah, that's what I think is so wonderful about anime, is that it can address difficult questions. Scrapped Princess is all about the dangers of religious fundamentalism. At its core, they're all trying to kill this princess because God told them to. Even though it doesn't feel right, even though, it's like the same thing that Huck Finn says, when he's on the raft with Jim, the slave, and the white guys on the other boat say, hey, is there a slave on the raft with you? And Huckleberry Finn goes, no, there's nobody here. And they go off. And he goes, oh, I lied, it's terrible, I lied to these guys, you know, there is actually a guy here, why do I feel so good? You know? Because he followed his heart, and his heart said, no, that feels right, that feels generous, that feels loving. And so I think that's what's cool about anime, is that it will address serious, thorny issues, and it will do it sort of unflinchingly. That's all I've wanted for American animation, is to be able to deal with issues like that. I think that's the biggest advantage I think that Japan has in animated storytelling, is they can tell any story they want, anyone they want. I mean, have you guys seen Rujin Z?
Yeah.
Random little yeah, by the guy who directed Akira, right? So Akira, big, everyone knows Akira, right? And then he turns around and does Rujin Z, which is this movie about, they develop a mechanical bed to take care of elderly people. All right, and this mechanical bed has artificial intelligence. And so the old man in it, he just wants to go back to the sea. So the bed goes, great, let's go. And the bed becomes like this tank. And is unstoppable. And it's like causing havoc. And all it's trying to do is give this old man what he wants. And like they bring out the military, and it's like, do you realize that this is an anime about how to deal with elderly people? Like, how sophisticated can you get? That's really cool. And it was the guy who did Akira. Oh my god. So yeah, that's what I think is cool.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Jigen?
Yes.
How did I know?
I loved you as Karasu in Knowing,
Oh, thank you.
and it's great. And I'd like to ask, what was it like being directed under Richard Epcar?
Oh, it's great. Richard's he's the only guy who's taller than me in voiceover. You know, whenever I walk into the booth, they have to raise the microphone for me. Anytime I walk in the booth and the mic is up here, I'm like, oh, Richard was here. Eh? How did you know? And he's got his padded line. Hey, buddy. Hey, Richard here. Hey, buddy. How you doing, buddy? Richard's a great guy. I mean, we play off of each other and Ghost in the Shell all the time as Bato and Togusa. But no, it's wonderful working with Richard.
Thank you.
You bet.
How you doing this morning, Mr. Freeman?
Good.
My name is Brett. I'm from the Philadelphia area.
Hello, Brett from the Philadelphia area.
Well, thank you. I actually got a couple questions. First off, clearly your career spans over 10 years of experience with not only what you have in anime, but also other roles in TV commercials and theater. Mm-hmm. Was there ever a role that you were doing that caused you a lot of stress or just got you really frustrated, either because of the role itself or because of something that happened while you were doing that role?
I'll be honest, as an actor, you usually try to block those memories out. Try to forget about them.
Understandable.
Well, I mean, there were times, probably more often in theater, there's times when you get frustrated or something because there's so many possible things to go wrong, like your costume. But I mean, there's nothing that sticks out in my head as like, oh, that was a horrible experience. But especially not in voiceover, because voice acting is fun. You know, I mean, and you know, you can do it in your t-shirt. Or stripped naked, which I sort of had to do once. Not completely naked, but when we were working on, and you should ask Mary Elizabeth about this because she's here. But Mary Elizabeth was directing me in Wolf's Rain, and we loved that show to death. And we were doing the final volume. And I had come in to record, and the guy who runs the studio where we were recording that really likes to keep it cold. I don't like it cold, but he likes it cold, fine. So I'm in there, and there's this noise when we were trying to record, and the engineer's like, what's making that noise? And I said, I don't know. And we figured out what it was my t-shirt. I had on this t-shirt that had like some spandex in it or something, so it was stretchy, and every time I would breathe in, it would squeak. Right? Just because the rubber would sort of squeak, and it was enough that the microphone was picking it up. And I said, well, wow, what are we going to have to do? He said, you just got to take your shirt off. So, you know, I was like, fine. I took my shirt off, but it was freezing in the booth, right? So I had my leather jacket. So I put my leather jacket on without a shirt, and now I look like Tsume in Wolf's Rain.